Welcome back to MurrayMax. We have another video breakdown here. This one's from Tim Pool, who had Adam Conover on his podcast, the Timcast. And apparently the context of this one is that Adam Conover is trying to make the argument that Trump's presidency is a full-blown fascist takeover of the United States. This is the same played-out argument we've heard over and over from the left. We heard it the first time around. And, you know, they say he's a dictator and tries to operate like a king. And it's like, if you even just consider the first presidency, it doesn't even make any sense. Trump wanted a border wall. They postponed it in court. They fought it. They stopped it. If he was a dictator, he would just have his wall, for example. But, you know, here we go again down this same road. It's always the same played out, talking points from the left. But let's see if Adam can actually back up anything. But ever since he destroyed his own career on the Joe Rogan show, I don't think that he has any debate skills or any ability to actually make any points. And he's just a herd mentality. He just repeats what he hears in his little Hollywood style bubble. Let's take a look.
I'll use a specific example. The David Pakman subreddit. Pakman, of course, has millions of followers. He gets 100 million views per month. And his audience on Reddit was saying, this is just a family man who is trying to escape harsh conditions in Central America, who has been effectively disappeared by the Trump administration, which is a gross mischaracterization of what happened. If we were to say that a judge granted Abrego Garcia withholding of deportation due to Barrios 18 in Guatemala and threats against his life in El Salvador, then the question of due process is he needed to get a hearing as pertaining to that withholding of deportation. But he did already have two hearings in which he was determined to be an MS-13 gang member. He was pulled over and law enforcement believed him to be human trafficking. He has two filings from his wife for beating her. She was filing orders of protection. And so it's fine if, in my view, the liberal side of things, or the, podcasters like Pakman and Brian Tyler Cohen and others are going to say, hey, he was supposed to get a hearing. Agreed. But it is a gross mischaracterization. So when you mention that, people on the left are on edge, I'm like, yeah, well, they think that a guy who lives in Maryland who was working like a regular union job or whatever just disappeared one day, as opposed to a guy who had gone through several hearings, was arrested with MS-13, had symbols on his hand that law enforcement believe were MS-13 gang tattoos. And so the real question is, what was the error in that deportation? On the right, it's legally called harmless error, in that he didn't get a hearing as to the withholding of deportation. However, he wouldn't have got it approved anyway. So the answer now is a formality. It's paperwork. It's a Zoom call, and then it's done. But people on the left, the liberal side of things, they think that this is a working class family guy who's vanished one night, an American citizen. And I think it was actually Hassan.
Well, people don't think he's an American citizen. I mean, they're up to speed on
Hassan Piker thought he was from Maryland.
That's not true. The way that they advertise him as a Maryland man, a Maryland husband, and they make it sound like he's wrongfully sent to El Salvador and things like that without clarifying why. The headline readers out there don't understand that this is someone who's not even a U.S. citizen. So, no one's going to cry over an American who's illegally in El Salvador that gets sent back to America. I mean, it's just the flip-flop and the contradictions are crazy. The media intentionally puts out headlines that already swing towards a certain narrative. There's people who think that Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed several black people. They don't even realize that the conflict was him and white people. The media does a very good job of hiding the truth. They've even been busted for darkening people's skin when they're a victim and lightening people's skin when they're a suspect. And, just all their tactics like that. So Tim's 100% right here. There's plenty of people who think that, this is an American citizen who was just black bagged and thrown on a jet and sent to El Salvador.
Legit. And we're talking, and I know it's not you, but this is the seventh biggest live streamer in the country. Almost every single day, Hassan gets 50K. And he actually said on his stream in response to the comments I made at the White House, what do you mean he's not from Maryland? Are you saying he's from D.C.? He's from Maryland. No, he's from El Salvador. He only lived in Maryland for a few years.
Okay. I mean, that guy talks for, 8 hours a day. You can parse, any particular
for sure
statement. But I mean, that to me, everything that you said, first of all, half of it sounds unrelated. Like, he's had past interaction with law enforcement, like domestic violence and stuff like that. To me, that's like neither here nor there. It's like character stuff.
Why? They're crimes. They're crimes by someone who's not legally in the country. Being here illegally is a crime in itself, but liberals and people on the left, for some reason, they just can't wrap their head around that being a crime in the beginning. So, but, beating the crap out of your wife, that's a felony. So that's not just, speaking to his character. Speaking to his character would be things like, oh, he allegedly, will borrow money and not pay it back, or he's racist or prejudiced towards this or that. Like that's about character. Beating the crap out of your wife is about character, but in the context of already being here illegally and being sent back to your home country while you're here illegally, doing illegal things, committing crimes, that's more than just character.
I don't really give a shit about like the character of the guy, and I didn't think that was a big part of the story. It was like the fact that he did not, receive due process before being, rendered to a prison, like this bizarre prison in El Salvador. Like that's the strange part.
That's
right?
El Salvador's government with an El Salvadoran citizen. That's not our purview.
I mean, he's like sent directly to this like gigantic, complex. It's in a.
Do you know why El Salvador is holding him in that prison? It's because that's a prison where they hold members of MS-13. The original, or people say, oh, the Supreme Court said that he couldn't be deported. No, that's not what the courts have said. The courts have said originally that he can be deported to anywhere, and the original argument was anywhere except for El Salvador, but that was their claim at the time, was because he would be endangered by rival gangs. Now, if you're not a gang member, why would you have a rival gang who was seeking to harm you or kill you? I mean, everything is just a massive contradiction. They'll mention that court situation and they'll say anywhere but El Salvador. If you ask them why, they don't want to answer because it's because the court said that a rival gang would harm him. But the new president of El Salvador has solved that problem, so it's not an issue anymore. And he'll be safe where he is, safer than he would be if it was, pre-incarceration of MS-13 and they were still roaming the streets, dismembering people.
In a like highly public way, in a way where like the administration, is making a show of their refusal to, follow the law. It's bizarre to witness. And like, the sort of narrow legalistic, oh, he had a hearing, he was da 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 da. It's irrelevant to like the purposeful spectacle of the Trump administration, sending this guy who they admit they should not have done this, but they're like, we don't give a shit. We're doing it just because we hate guys like this and we want like even people who are in the country legally to, be afraid and to self-deport.
Yeah.
Like it seems like the only justification is purposeful cruelty for doing
I don't think they call on any legal immigrants to self-deport. They're calling on illegal immigrants to self-deport, offering up $1,000 if they do.
The guy had a legal status to be in the country.
He did not.
Legally.
It's not true. Withholding of deportation isn't legal status. Withholding of deportation means he was ordered to leave the country, but the U.S. was barred from sending him to El Salvador, specifically because Barrios 18 in Guatemala had threatened his family. So the question as to due process was, this is why I think the actual legal standard is called harmless error. If he actually got either USCIS interview as to the withholding of deportation, it would have been voided because El Salvador no longer has the crime rate that it did 12 years ago or 10 years ago. The issue is, are you still at threat from Barrios 18? The answer is no. And so then your withholding of deportation is void. We can deport you. The issue is that for deportation of someone like Rego Garcia, he has a home country, El Salvador. He has a withholding to that to El Salvador, a withholding of deportation because of a gang in another country neighboring El Salvador. We can't deport him to Venezuela. We can't deport him to Mexico. That requires treaties. The U.S. doesn't have those, though we do have a treaty with Venezuela, with El Salvador as it pertains to Tren de Aragua. So what ends up happening is he had 2 orders of deportation. He conceded in 2019 through his lawyer that yes, he was here illegally. Yes, he had been found to be here to be removable under the law, and he requested 3. There's withholding of deportation. There was asylum, and then there was I forgot the third one is it's you can't deport him because of a fear of torture. It's like a UN thing, and they denied 2 of them. Asylum was denied because he didn't apply for it in a timely manner. Deportation to El Salvador was granted because of Barrios 18 in Guatemala, and then the last one was denied because there's no torture provision. The remedy right now would be a Zoom hearing where he gets on a computer, talks to these are executive judges, by the way, and they would just say, withholding denied. Welcome to El Salvador. You're an El Salvador citizen. I think the real issue is, yes, it was an administrative error, shouldn't have happened, but the remedy is a 10-minute Zoom call. If we did that, nothing would change. If he was brought back to the United States, he'd immediately be turned around and sent back because his withholding would be voided. So,
how is this something that you're certain? I mean, the man was. Did a judge not order the Trump administration not to remove the guy? Like,
I think it was under the first Trump administration. He was granted the withholding. He wasn't supposed to be removed. He got caught up in the sweep, essentially. But again, if the due process due to this man would be a hearing under withholding of deportation.
So is he receiving this due process?
No, I agree. They should do it. I actually asked the secretary, why not just send the USCIS guy down?
So why don't you think they're doing it?
I think there's 2 potentialities. Trump, actually it's probably more than 2, but Trump doesn't want to look weak. He doesn't want to look like he's going to be pushed around by the judiciary. But I do agree with you.
Otherwise known as following the law?
No, not necessarily. I mean, the universal...
In this case?
No, actually, universal injunctions are unconstitutional. So there's a concern that precedent will be set by Trump adhering to universal injunctions pertaining to the Alien Enemies Act or mass deportation, and he's not going to allow that to happen. So he doesn't want to set a precedent in the future. Universal injunctions don't exist anywhere in the Constitution, and we've seen some 40% of all injunctions ever issued in this way against Trump and his administration. He's got more, I believe he has more universal injunctions in the first 4 months than all other presidents ever got individually. And that is unconstitutional. These judges are issuing these mandates which plainly violate their constitutional.
Yeah, they're rogue judges. They do whatever they want. They're unelected. They make decisions for the country without any consequence. People rarely even ever know their names. Of course, you can look them up, but it's never advertised. I guess not that that's the most important part, but it is nice to know who these people are, because part of knowing who they are creates accountability. You know, if no one ever knew, I mentioned Kyle Rittenhouse earlier, if no one ever knew his name, if it was never really in the papers, and if it wasn't like a big, bold area of the stories, his life would be much different. These judges, they defy constitutional factors and things that have been upheld since the founding of the country, or the founding of the issue to even be able to be a thing, and they just have no consequences for it. And I'm sure the left, I'm sure Adam loves that, because the left loves it when even someone defies their constitutional obligations, as long as they're sticking it to someone on the right.
Authority. So the check on that is plainly Trump says, no, I'm not going to adhere to something you can't do.
Right. So this is, again, this is authoritarianism, right? It's like
How's that authoritarian?
Okay,
well, I agree. The judges are acting in authoritarian. Thanks for watching this clip from the.
Yeah. So Adam doesn't really have any leg to stand on. This entire podcast is a fun watch with Tim Pool and Adam Conover. But Adam Conover, I don't know why he keeps going on these kind of podcasts. Ever since Joe Rogan, I don't know why he goes on things like this, because he can't debate. He can't articulate his points. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And just like we saw here, he didn't even know that Garcia wasn't just a citizen or a foreigner who was allowed to be here. He doesn't have any of the details, but he's so passionate about, Trump's a fascist and it's a fascist takeover of the United States and it's authoritarian and all these different things when he doesn't even know the details of these cases. Let me know in the comments what you think, and thanks for tuning in. I'm going to keep pumping out some more videos.